Welcome to Quick MCAT Lessons, where I try to explain MCAT topics in 10 minutes or less. Today, we're going to go over some practice questions to finish up 6A. As always, I encourage you to pause in between each question and answer. I won't spend a lot of time waiting, so it'd be better if you pause, say the answer, define your reasons why, and then play the video again. So let's get started. Which of the following is not a type of cell involved in sensation? Cone cell, Pacinian corpuscle, parietal cell, and cochlear hair cell. Let's define what each cell does. So the cone cell, this is in the visual system, it helps see color. This is sensation. Pacinian corpuscle, recall that corpuscles are in mechanical sensation, so you should note that this is some type of sensation cell. Parietal cell, we'll skip that. Cochlear hair cell, that is in the cochlea and it's a hair cell, so that is for hearing. Parietal cells are in the stomach and they secrete hydrochloric acid, so the answer is parietal cells. Number 2, define absolute threshold. Absolute threshold is the minimum intensity of a stimulus required to be detected 50% of the time. Number 3, under conditions of high physiological arousal, what will happen? Will you increase the threshold of perception? Will you decrease the threshold of perception? Will you increase the threshold of sensation? Or will you decrease the threshold of sensation? So if you are in a condition of high physiological arousal, that means you want to be more aware of your surroundings. So this means you would want to decrease your threshold of perception. Now imagine you're walking home alone at night, or you're in a jungle or somewhere. You want to perceive everything. If you hear a small sound, you don't want your brain to filter it out as garbage or noise. You want to pay attention to it. So your sensation threshold should stay the same, but you want to decrease your threshold of perception so you are more alert to even smaller sensations. Number 4, what is true regarding visual fields? So A, light in the left hemifield will be processed by the right brain. B, light in the left hemifield will be processed by the left brain. C, light in the left hemifield will be processed by the entire front brain. And D, light in the left hemifield will be processed by the entire back brain. In vision, hemifield means the part of the visual field that is seen by both eyes. As you probably know, the nasal retina crosses over so it can be processed by the opposing side of the brain. So light in the left hemifield will be processed by the right brain. Moving on, which of the following protects the eye and provides lubrication? The cornea, the sclera, the conjunctiva, or the lens? So the answer is the conjunctiva. This is the thin layer inside your eyelids that provides lubrication and protects the eye. Moving on, in a signal detection theory, what's a false positive? So a false positive is essentially a false alert where there is no signal, but you detect it. It's a boy who cried wolf. Number 7, which of the following is being measured when determining whether a person can detect a pin light in a dark room after the person has spent a long period of time in the room? Just noticeable difference, Weber's law, absolute threshold, or sensory adaptation? The answer here is sensory adaptation. This is because over time, the ability for a receptor to detect a stimulus may decrease as the receptor becomes adapted to that stimulus. Recall that just noticeable difference is the difference in strength between those stimuli and allows the stimuli to be differentiated at 50% of the time. Absolute threshold is when a particular stimulus can be detected by a person 50% of the time, and this is actually the strength of that stimulus that has reached the absolute threshold for detection. In this question, however, we are detecting the ability of detection after adaptation of the receptors to the dark, and this is sensory adaptation. Okay, number 8. According to signal detection theory, if a sound is played at an intensity below a person's absolute threshold for detection, when that person is not expecting a sound to be played, what is likely to happen? Did you get a hit, miss, false positive, or false negative? And you can choose multiple answers here. And so if it's below absolute threshold and the person's not expecting it, then there will definitely be a miss and not a hit. Now let's think about what a false negative and false positive are. So false negative is essentially the same thing as a miss, as it says that there was a signal there, but it was not detected. And false positive is that there was no signal, but it was detected. And so the answers would be both miss and false negative. Moving on to question 9. What receptor class is responsible for detecting pain, and what receptor class is responsible for detecting temperature? These are nociceptors and thermoreceptors. Number 10. Which of the following is not a mechanoreceptor? So receptors in your stomach, which detect stomach stretch, receptors in your heart, which detect blood pressure, receptors in your tongue detecting specific food particles, and receptors in your skin detecting vibrations. And the answer here would be in your tongue detecting specific food particles, as these are largely chemoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors detect mechanical stimuli like touch, pressure, vibration, and sound. The next question is, which of the following visual cues is used to detect the distance of an object when that object moves towards a person's face? Motion parallax, relative height, relative size, or convergence? And the answer here is convergence. It's a binocular cue, and it's where the two eyes turn inward to view an object, and this makes the brain calculate how close or far an object is. Recall that motion parallax says objects moving across our plane of vision will move slower if they are further away. Relative height and relative size say that objects that are closer will be lower in the visual plane, and larger objects will be perceived as closer. So that leaves convergence. Convergence is the only one that is used to detect the distance of an object when it's moving closer to the person. Question 12 is, what is not involved in refraction of light? The lens, cornea, aqueous humor, or retina? And it's the retina. The retina is not involved in the refraction of light, as the lens, cornea, and aqueous humor refract the light towards the retina. Number 13, what part of the eye regulates the amount of light entering the eye? This is the iris. Recall that the iris is a flat membrane behind the cornea which can dilate or constrict the pupil to let more or less light in the eye. Number 14, which of the following happens during phototransduction? Light striking the cones, causing the cleavage of rhodopsin, resulting in sodium influx channels opening. Light striking the cones, causing the cleavage of rhodopsin, resulting in sodium influx channels closing. Light striking the rods, causing the cleavage of rhodopsin, resulting in sodium influx channels closing. Or light striking the rods, causing the cleavage of rhodopsin, resulting in sodium influx channels opening. And let's break this up. Firstly, it will be striking rods because rhodopsin is in rods. Secondly, the sodium influx channels would close because recall that they are always open, and when phototransduction happens, it is turning them off or closing them. So the answer would be light striking the rods, causing the cleavage of rhodopsin, resulting in sodium influx channels closing. Visual processing happens in what part of the brain? This would be the occipital lobe. Next one, the fact that the object-oriented and spatial-oriented info is processed separately in the brain exemplifies bottom-up processing, top-down processing, parallel processing, or serial processing. This would be parallel processing, as it is the simultaneous processing of different info in order to produce a complete understanding. The next question is, why is the fovea the area of highest visual activity? Is it because A, there are both cones and rods in the fovea, B, there's only cones in the fovea, C, there's only rods in the fovea, and D, there's neither rods nor cones in the fovea? And this should be an easy one. There are only cones in the fovea. Remember that there are rods in the macula and cones, but majorly cones, but there are no rods in the fovea at all. And the final question, which is important during the processing of vision? The MGN, LGN, Broca's area, or medulla? The answer here is the LGN, the lateral geniculate nucleus. This is the relay center in the thalamus, and it's where the thalamus connects with the optic nerve. That's it for this episode. Next time, we'll start biochemistry.